threw in a few slides because Alcom is also something that they can do at the Thomas Center, and I didn't want to overstep my bounds, so I did put in some slides so you kind of know the difference between the two places. A little bit about myself. I'm a mom. I have 4 kids. My oldest daughter just graduated from UC, and she has a speech undergrad degree, but is thinking about going into special ed. So my son is also at UC in business, and then I have twins who are in 8th grade. So busy, but I'm really excited to be here. To start the evaluation process, you're probably going to see a speech-language pathologist, and they are going to be looking at some of these items here. They're going to ask about vision and hearing, and then the actual speech and language, pragmatic. How are they using their language? Usually we start with requesting. I want. But we want to make sure that we're looking at other parts of language. We want to be able to have them tell us when they don't want to do something. Unfortunately, we do want them to protest sometimes. We want them to be able to ask questions. What is it? When are we going to be there? Those kinds of things. So it's not just about requesting to get what you want, but some other functions of language as well. They're going to look at receptive language. How much does your child understand? Can they follow simple directions? Can they answer those questions? Usually, when you have a high receptive and a low expressive, that's the perfect kiddo for an Alcom system. You need to bridge that gap because they're understanding everything. They just can't give it back to you at the same level, and you're going to have some frustration. So we need to work on bringing that expressive up to where the receptive is. And then also speech. Do they have some speech? Can we work on speech? Can we get some better sounds? Can we get more words? So it's kind of looking at a lot of different things. So specifically to the augmentative communication part of the assessment, some of the things that the speech-language pathologist will look at will be picture identification. Can they actually, is that an apple? Can you find the apple? Can you find the shoe? Do they understand what those pictures mean? Can they find that picture when there's more choices? Because that's a little more, difficult or challenging sometimes, especially with vision. Sometimes with vision difficulties, that's a lot of work to look at all those pictures and find the right one. Categorization. So categorization is important because if you have a system and all of your vocabulary needs to be stored on screens or pages, you have to be able to navigate that system. So if I want a drink, I have to know that that button that I push will take me to a drink page. So I have to know that drinks all go together in this one group. All the other categories as well. So it's not bad to be working on just fun categorization games and skills to build that skill to be able to use a communication device. So we've done things where we'll pull out cards, is it an animal or is it furniture? Just, basic fun things like that. So. Spelling and literacy. If you have any spelling skills, most all of the devices will have a keyboard, so you can start to spell those words or at least sound them out, and then most of them will have word prediction. So even though they might not be able to spell the whole word, they might be able to recognize it first and then hit it and be able to hear it. So a few general thoughts about AAC. I know a lot of families are hesitant about AAC because they feel like if their child uses some type of AAC system or device, then they're not going to use their speech, or they're not going to keep working on their verbal speech. And just so you know, there has been research, and that really isn't true. Basically, if you can give them a means of communication, it will decrease their frustration and then help them communicate, which is really what the whole goal is to communicate, whether it be by speech or sign or some type of device. And actually, there has been some research that shows that if kids do use communication devices, their verbal skills improve. Because they're hearing a constant model of that word or of that phrase, and by hearing it the same way over and over, then they might be willing to also make an attempt to say it. Children with Down syndrome do well with visual cues. So obviously all the systems have a visual picture icon to go with the word and the message. So visual systems in general seem to be good for kids with Down syndrome. So now I'm just going to kind of jump into some of the technology that we've used. And before I start, does anybody here have kids using any technology devices?
She uses Proloquo on a, well, she's learning to use Proloquo on an iPad.
Awesome. Anybody else?
Touch chat.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay.
Low
Yeah.
tech.
Low tech stuff? Awesome. Okay. All right. Well, we are going to start there actually. Light tech. We've been trying to call it light tech. Low tech just kind of sounds not good. So we're just trying to switch over. So light tech. So this could mean picture symbols. Picture symbols just done in a, just not the Pecs way, just more of a low tech way. Or it could be the Peck system. I know you mentioned that earlier. Using photographs of familiar things. Actually, the very beginning stages would be just using objects. Do you want this or this? Do you want a bite or do you want a drink? And you have the sippy cup and you have the spoon. And then you might associate the photographs with those, and then you might incorporate the symbol that goes with that object as well. Pen and paper, static picture boards, and even a dry erase board we've used. So real quick, I was just going to show you a couple. These would be samples of just low-tech activity boards or core boards. So core vocabulary right now is really big. It used to be a long, long time ago, we would have one of these, and if we were playing bubbles, it would just be all about bubbles. And then we would have one about playing cars and trucks. So you would have a million different activity boards. The trend has been to go to what we call core vocabulary, and it is those vocabulary words that we use most often and across all situations, experiences, environments. You, me, go, stop, more, done. Those words that you usually teach early anyway, those are the words because you can combine that with something else and use it across almost any activity to get your meaning across. So that would be low tech. We also use just a black Velcro board with picture symbols. So we would take our picture symbols, just like from our Pecs book, and we would put them on the board for making choices. Early on, we may just have 2 choices, then we might try to do 4, and then build up. So what we do is pair something that we call preferred with non-preferred. So say they hate to get their face washed. So you may have a washcloth and bubbles. And so, you know, which one do you want? Or find the bubbles. And then if they accidentally pick the washcloth, then they're going to get their face washed for like 10 seconds. So they are building up the understanding that by picking this, I meant they're going to do that. So I have to be careful what I pick. So it's easy to present lots of preferred items, and that's okay. But just remember, as you're starting to get deeper into it, do some non-preferred in there too, to make sure that they're not picking randomly. So, all right, here's just a picture of one of our little girls working on picture identification. And then Pecs. So Pecs is just a more formal way of using picture symbols. It's an actual system by the Pyramid Educational Consultants. It was developed in 1985 and was first used with kids with autism. But since then, I have seen it used with just about anybody and everybody. So I think the autism community still uses it frequently and most often, but almost anybody can benefit. The formal Peck system has 6 stages where you first just start by having the child learn the behavior of I'm handing you something and I get something. It's that exchange that is, you're teaching actual communication. Based on that first level, then you're going to jump to another level where they would be identifying 2 different things. And then on up to where you're expanding the language. They would add in adjectives to describe things and try to put a message or a sentence together. It's all very visual with the picture symbols. I just pulled off their website some of the things that you can actually purchase from them, or you can just go to Staples and do your own. They do have the binders with part of it cut off and then the Velcro strips. And then the page protectors, I would encourage you to get the plastic ones if you're trying to do your own system, because the paper ones with a lot of on and off will eventually rip. So those plastic page protectors are really good. They have their own CD of picture symbols, which you can use. I'm also going to give you, and in your handout, there are lots of other ways you can get a picture symbol system that you can use. So there's lots of options out there. Here's a couple of pictures of sample Pecs books that have been used. And Jenna brought her sons in, so you can take a peek at that one as well. There's a couple on the table. So you can I like the picture of this one just because it's showing a really simple, I feel, and limited 3 choices. You know, that's very visually overwhelming, but if they've learned all their foods, that might be okay. But you might need to start with just a few per page and build up to more and more. Also, the Peck symbols, or just regular picture communication symbols, used for picture schedules. I'm sure you guys like to know what is going to happen, where you're going to go, what you're going to do, when you're going to do it. And I think kids are the same way, and they do better if they have that knowledge of what's going to happen, who's going to be there. So it's not a bad idea to try to use those picture symbols to kind of give them a schedule of their day as well. It's especially important if something's going to change in their schedule. So, you know, I'm used to doing this. Uh-oh, we're not going to do that today. So, you know, to kind of picture a change in their schedule is not a bad idea. Okay, so some of the other options for picture symbols. One is called Symbol Sticks Prime. So the symbol sticks are the little I'll show you. The symbol sticks are the little stick figure guys, okay? And then the ones that are more people-like, like these, are the PCS, or picture communication symbols. So some kids do better when they have like this type, because there's more there than just the symbol sticks. A lot of kids will do fine with just the symbol sticks that are very simple, because then they have to focus more on what that symbol stick person is doing, or what's being presented besides just that little person. So you can get a subscription. It's about $83 for a year. They add new symbols to it. If any of your kids are using the News to You or the Unique Learning System at school, they use those symbols as well, so they would be familiar. Boardmaker Online, which those are the picture communication symbols, and those are the ones that have been around the longest, and usually are the ones that the schools are using the most. A lot of the teachers will have those up in their classrooms to identify the different areas in their rooms, and have adapted the learning activities with those. That's $99 for 1 year. Matrix Maker is $2.99 for a license, but that is not a subscription. You buy it and you have it forever. This is the one that I use most frequently, and it is so easy. You really don't even need any training. You just put it in. Basically, you start a new page, or you open a page you've already made to modify. It has templates for communication devices. It has templates for games, schedules, almost anything you'd want. You can pull in symbols from the web, the internet. You can use, I think they have 2 other sets of symbols besides symbol sticks with it. One called widgets, and I cannot remember the other one. So, but very easy to use. I also did a little research just to find, you can find almost anything under Google. Just use your own. Pinterest had a whole bunch of boards for finding picture symbols as well. This One Place for Special Needs was a really good website that I found, and they actually had some picture symbols and links off of their website listed, as well as Say It with symbols, and those were free. So, all right, and then jumping ahead, what we would call mid-tech, or mid-tech would be jumping from some of the manual picture symbols, boards, up to something that's not a dynamic display. So the difference between these 2 devices would be that this one we call a dynamic display. This is a static display. Dynamic, basically you touch it and it's going to keep changing pages or screens. This is a static display. It is going to stay like this the whole time until you take this out and put another one in. Usually the kids do not do this themselves, so it's a teacher, a parent, or a therapist that would be switching out the overlays for them. And the other difference,
I want more.
so this is recorded speech, and these would be called synthesized speech. So this is going to sound more like a computer, and then this is going to sound very natural. So
Mr. Potato Head.
this might be a step, though, to get to this. All right. There are lots of these available. Here's another example of one. Actually, this one you may not get to hear because the batteries may be dead. But this one you can wear, and this would be good for even like I would say a teen that maybe just needs some quick communication. They could wear it, and it has 12 messages on this one. There's also one similar to this that's a wrist bracelet, and it has like 3 or 4 that you can push. So if you need something that's very portable, I need to use the bathroom, call my mom, whatever those important messages are, there's a nice little bracelet one. Step-by-step and Big Macs, have you guys heard of those before? No? Okay, brought one of each. Basically, same device, small and big. This one.
What is knock knock joke?
So this one you can have multiple messages programmed on, and it just keeps going through. So it's a do you want to hear knock knock joke?
Knock knock.
Who's there?
Orange.
Orange shoe.
Orange, you glad to see me?
Okay, and it's just going to
Want
start
to
over.
hear a knock knock joke?
Okay, so, and basically the same thing on this one. I'm not sure.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, elevator P.
So you get the idea. These can be used for tons of different things. It can be used for making color choices or food choices, repeating the repetitive line in a story, or helping tell a favorite story by having the lines on there. And it's really just one hit. That would be a really good tool for using with the young kids, or just learning how to use some type of system. We also use those a lot for I want more and I'm all done. So that's a good one. Verses of songs, lines from a story, or repetitive lines. Okay, any questions on the mid-tech stuff? No? All right. So when we call it high-tech, mostly what we're talking about is something that's electronic and something that would have a dynamic screen on it. And most of them these days are some type of tablet. So I know you said you have Proloquo, you said Touch Chat. So there's examples of those up here as well, so you guys can kind of take a look at it. But when we talk about high tech, we're talking about those types of devices or systems. We had a young lady, she was a teenager, and she used her iPod Touch. She had apraxia, and she loved it. Most of the companies have devices in different sizes now. So the really small ones, like the 8-inch tablets, the 10-inch tablets, and then I know one company has gone to even offering the 13-inch, the new iPad Pro. So there are lots of companies who sell these devices, and here are a few of them. The Tobii Dynavox company has a few different small portable devices. The Accent series is by a company called Prunky-Romic, or PRC. And then the Tobii Dynavox devices down there as well. And then the ProSlate and the Comlink devices, it was Forbes Rehab. They just kind of changed their name. It's Forbes AAC. So they have some good devices as well.
So question on those devices, are those softwares exclusive to those devices and not available online?
That is a good question. I'll see if I can answer it. So this is the Tobii Dynavox, and it's called the Indy. They have two. They have the Indy and the I-110. So you would get this communication device with their software on it. This company, which is the Forbes AAC, sells the ProSlate. That is an iPad, that they've turned into a device that can go through insurance for funding. And they let you pick any app that you want. Okay? So it's your choice on which app, but you get one, but you can have any app you want.
That's the first lady.
Right, ProSlate. This one is the Accent by PRC, and they have, the language system is called Unity, but they can also let you have word power, which is another commonly used language system on this one. And then this one is by a company called Saltillo. And Saltillo does the, it's called NovaChat. They use the Touch Chat app on theirs.
My son is a thrower. Are
Yes.
those breakable?
Yes, they are. So here's what I would tell you. They are breakable. This one is probably, I would say, maybe one of the most durable. It has a really nice case on it. And the other thing is this company offers a 5-year warranty. So if you were to break the screen, they would fix it 2 times within 5 years. So it's not unlimited 5-year, but it's within 5 years they'll fix it if something happens. The I-110 that just came out by Dynavox is also being advertised as very durable and also good like out in the rain, kind of a little more waterproof. I think they're offering a 3-year warranty on theirs. So then your other option is not to even get one of the dedicated devices, but to do like what you guys have done. And what Jenna's son has is just an actual iPad or iPad mini with an app on whatever case you guys decide might be the best one for your kiddo to use. Whether it needs a lightweight one because he doesn't throw or a more durable one because he might throw. Okay. Did I answer your question?
I have
Yeah.
a question. Can you talk about, and maybe this will be later in your insurance, it might be, or in your presentation, I might be jumping ahead, but what has been the response of insurance companies to these?
That is a good question. I do touch on it later on, but I'll go ahead and answer it now. So a lot of the insurance companies will cover the communication devices. What you need to do is check your insurance for DME, durable medical equipment. So if your insurance company covers DME, then they should cover a speech device because those speech devices are coded with E-codes that would match DME. Now, some insurance companies, and they're allowed to do this, can put in an exclusion in your policy. So they may cover DME, but it may say will not cover a speech generating device, augmentative communication device, whatever. So you really should call your insurance company and say, do you cover speech devices, comm devices, whatever you might, they may have their own terminology. I know we ran into an issue where one of the Anthem plans, and there's lots of different plans, so you have to be careful because if one person says, well, my Anthem doesn't cover it, another one might, just because each of those plans are written differently for the employers. This one said would not be covered unless the larynx had been removed. So basically, if somebody had laryngeal cancer and had their larynx removed, you could get one, but otherwise, you're out of luck. Now, we were lucky enough, this was a young man who had CP, and his doctor was able to write a letter and say his larynx is non-functional, but we're not going to remove it. And it was, I think, overturned. So usually if you have a pretty good therapist working on it, if it's not an exclusion and they deny it, it is worth appealing and sending a letter in saying no and addressing whatever questions or concerns they had. So if you have Ohio Medicaid, we have had really good luck. They're covering devices really well. And UHS, I think, is the one insurance company that I feel like we've had the most trouble with. So,
United Healthcare?
yeah, UHS is the one that we've had some trouble with.
Is it the MCO in Ohio? Is it
Managed care? No.
the Medicaid? Because there's
Yeah, so
the MCOs like CareSource and some of the different.
we have had pretty good luck with those. And from my understanding, those managed care Medicaid plans are not supposed to be different than traditional
Right.
as far as what they're offering. So I feel like if you get denied by CareSource or one of the other ones, you need to appeal it because Ohio traditional Medicaid is covering it.
So, is there a difference in sensitivity to touch in the different devices?
Definitely. So if you have one of these devices, it's more of an actual, you really have to have more pressure to push it. But if you have any of these that have the screens, it's a really light touch. Now, most of these devices have a built-in feature where you can have what we call a dwell time. So if the kids are kind of doing this, what we have done is set the dwell time to say 0.3 tenths of a second, so that they actually have to hold it for a second before it will activate. So it's frustrating for us when you're programming, but for the kids, when they learn that they have to push it and it has to be purposeful, then it's helpful. But these are very light sensitive. Just put together a quick list of apps that we use frequently at the Perlman Center and for different areas. So the first one is cause and effect. So just getting those young kiddos to understand when I touch something, something will happen. So these are some of the fun ones that we've used just to get them interacting with a screen. So when they touch it, they might hear music, an animal sound, or whatever. This one, we have a lot of kiddos with visual impairment that we see. And so the OTs put together this list of apps for kids to work a little bit on their visual skills. Targeting. So it's sometimes, you know, trying to get to that very small target or little button is hard. So some of these apps will actually help them practice getting just to those little targets. And then I'm going to go over the communication apps a little more. Here's a list of a few of them. And here's the second page, and I'm just going to jump ahead. So the Aac Genie is $13, and basically you should probably not purchase this for a communication app. It's more of an assessment. So you might have some of your speech therapists using this to assess how your child would do with a communication app. I love this app. It is a fairly quick and easy app to do, and basically the first few pages, find the apple, find the apple, find the apple. And it starts with maybe 2 pictures and then goes to 4, all the way up to, I think, 32 buttons, and it gets smaller and smaller. So basically you're assessing how many buttons can they handle and how small the target can they get to. Second series of pages would be an apple with lots of other things. The first ones were blank, maybe. And then the second one, so can you find an apple when you have cookies and a bus and all of these other things? Can you discriminate the apple and find it? And then it ends with finding verbs. You also have to find verbs. And then you have a sample communication page. And if somebody models for you, he is reading. Would the child then be able to try to do he is reading? Or what is he doing? And if they could at least look for reading, then you can kind of figure out what level they're at. So, and then it gives you a really nice chart of the data, which I usually put into my evaluation because those insurance companies and Medicaid love to see numbers to say that yes, it's going to work. So, sounding board I love for a beginning app. And so if anybody just has an iPad and they want to just try an app to see, I would recommend Sounding Board, and it's free. You can use picture symbols, or you can actually put in your own photos. So you can just take the photos of the objects with your iPad and plug those into those. So if they have 2 favorite toys, which one do you want to play with, or do you want to read a book or have a drink? You can just plug those in. They also come with some pre-done boards, and these are the symbols that go. Their library is fairly small of the symbols that they have, so I usually use this mostly with photos that I import. So, but for free, it's good. Go Talk Now, so that Go Talk device that I talked about, that company actually ended up coming up with an app, and there's a light version for free, and it gives you a few boards. I think there's a limit to how many boards you can make in the light version. But if you get the regular version, it's $80. And these are just a couple of samples. You can have just one button, and it can just be one message. I want more. I want more. So they're just learning early communication. Then you could jump up to, 2 buttons, 4 buttons. And then this one in the middle shows quite a few choices. This one also allows you to import those digital photos that you take with the iPad itself. So, chat with word power. The word power gives you another set of pages starting from 20 buttons all the way up, I think, to 108 buttons. So it's for the more advanced user, somebody that can handle 20 plus buttons. Usually when we put these through insurance, we're asking for touch chat word power. Even though your child may be on that 15, we know that they're probably going to grow and need more, so we're just going to get it all at once. And so we get touch chat word power. So if you're buying it yourself, you might want to think about just getting touch chat, and then it's an in-app purchase. So if your child then moves on to needing 20 plus buttons per page, then you could add that on. So. And here are a couple of pictures of what the screens might look like in touch chat. And again, I'm hoping you guys will get a chance to kind of play around with these too.
Yeah, that's the one Ashton uses, so that's on his device.
It's very user friendly. Would you? I can teach.
Easy for me to put what we need on there for Ashton.
Back in the day when we had other communication devices, I felt like I had to spend a whole lot of time training parents on how to program. And now I bet I could do it in one session and let them go. They'll come back to the second session and have a few questions or want to do a little more. But it is really easy. Yeah.
So how do you know where to start off? Is that part of the assessment, which level they should be at? And so that's part of it. Okay.
Yeah. So there are factors. Physically, can they handle this many buttons, or should we start with fewer? Receptively, do they understand what all those pictures mean? So there's a lot of factors that way too. So.
Can you buy the device secondhand?
If you look on eBay, or there are some special needs groups on Facebook, I've noticed, every once in a while you might see one or find one, but not very often. Snapseed is an app. So sometimes kids do better having a context of what they're communicating about. So Snapseed is an app where you can take a photo of anything and then you make hotspots. Design your own page around whatever your photo is. And you can put in multiple. This one, they've shown a learning activity where they're working on prepositions. So that's kind of a nice one. And then Snap plus Core First. That is a fairly new app by Tobii Dynavox. So that's the one that comes on this device. You can also get a free trial of this on an iPad. So if you guys wanted to check out Snap plus Core First, you would go to the Tobii Dynavox website, and I think you have to sign up for an account, and then you can do a free trial of that one. Proloquo To Go is another really popular, common app. I would say Proloquo To Go and Touch Chat are very similar. I think it's fairly easy to program, and that's one you guys have, right? Mm-hmm. Do you feel like it's pretty easy?
I don't know. I mean, yeah. You definitely need to spend a good amount of time on it with somebody that knows what they're doing.
Right.
I mean, it's not intuitive, I guess.
I feel like what they did with this is they gave you lots of options.
Yeah.
So there's an option to do anything. The colors, the number of buttons, the actions that the buttons do. And so I feel like, sometimes when you have too many bells and whistles, and then you're like, eh. So I almost feel like this one has lots of bells and whistles, but you also then have a little harder time maybe programming it. So. The other thing about Proloquo is it will let you adjust the number of buttons on a page, but what will happen is, say if I just want 9 buttons, it's going to get rid of these and these. So I find it a little hard, and then the kids would either have to swipe over or up and down to get to those other vocab items. But if you have a kid who's a swiper and you don't want them swiping, then you have to set it, and then you're going to have to think about where that other vocabulary is going to go. So, but it's about same price pretty much, maybe a little cheaper than if you got Touch Chat with word power. So they're very comparable. And then real quick, this is one that I like for anybody who is able to spell. So maybe the older kids or adults, if they're spelling. Predictable basically is more of a keyboard, and it does have a place where you can have pre-done messages. And then what I like about it is usually they're trying to get on social media so they can share their messages on Facebook or whatever. So, okay. And then the next couple of slides basically are just website resources that I put down there for you, because these are the websites that we use to get lots of our ideas. That very top one, the Practical AAC, I love it. They usually send out a weekly, like one video a week or one topic a week, and I get the best ideas. So it's not a bad one to sign up for. Help Kids Learn is actually a company, and they sell iPad activities. They're learning activities, so they have songs and counting and those kinds of things. So that's not a bad one. And the News to You is like kind of a newsletter of picture symbols. So they might have a joke, and they might have a recipe, and they might have a story. They usually have current events. So maybe a little bit for the older kids. Year of Core Words, just an organized way of teaching the kids the core vocabulary week by week. Because sometimes you're overwhelmed, like what do I start with? Where do I go? So it's, some of these have just come up with ways that you can teach these week by week. And then I just listed out the vendors that we use most often. So if you wanted to visit their websites and see which devices they have, I just broke it down that way as well. AbleNet does a lot of the step-by-steps, the switches. They do have one iPad-based device called the Quick Talker Freestyle, and it's a nice device. So you can go through AbleNet, and they're ones that would put any app on there, so you have a choice. Forbes AAC is the company that does the Pro Slates, which are these. And I will point out, what I like about Forbes is if your kiddo needs a key guard, I really like the Forbes key guards because they are magneted on. So they have four pretty strong magnets, and then on the back they have the little magnets, and then they just, now this one I can tell you we've used and used, so, but usually I can pick it up by the key guard and the device will not fall. But this one has, I think, just been used. So what happens is when you come for an eval, since we do ours with an OT, we would figure out what you were asking, like which page set should we start with. And the kiddo might start with 15, but then they may graduate and need a whole bunch more buttons. So you could just actually get a new key guard on your device. So other companies, they also have key guards, and the key guards that go with the NovaChat devices are these. So they have a little inset that you would snap them in, but you can kind of feel they're not real durable, kind of thinner plastic, but they do work. And then if you have your own iPad and feel like your child would benefit from a key guard, I forgot to put it in the presentation, but there's a company called Pecs. It's Pecs. And they would do a custom key guard for an iPad. You have to tell them which app you're using, how many buttons, and which case you're using, and then they would get you one.
What's the name of it?
Pecs. Yeah, and I think it's P-I-C-S. I don't think it's P-I-X. I'll try to look it up for you maybe. Here's the picture of the key guard on the Pro Slates. Oh, one more thing I was going to show you about the Pro Slates that's different. This company also has what they call the Sound Pod, and it's a Bluetooth speaker because the iPad by itself tends not to get loud enough in restaurants or outside. I don't know if you guys have found that. So a lot of people like to have a speaker to make it louder. So this comes with it, and it just magnets on the back. And it is pretty strong. I have one young adult who likes, they send you a lanyard, so you can actually wear it, and the sound comes more out from your body more naturally than through the device. So. The other ones, like this one, they have built in their speakers in the case. So a lot of them will have a speaker. This one is here at the top. But if you use an iPad, then you would have to just finagle your own Bluetooth speaker and attach it somehow. I just kind of outlined each of the companies and which devices that they have and kind of what we like about them. Cranky Romic has the green one that I showed you. They have different sizes. They have the 8-inch, the 10-inch, and they have a 14-inch. And then they also have a device called the Prio, which is an iPad, but the only app that they put on there is called LAMP, Words for Life. And it's a very specific system. It's got about 100 buttons. Now you can hide those buttons and bring them back as you're teaching your child those vocabulary items, but they would have to be pretty good fine motor-wise.
With the Bracelet, can you just get the hardware with an existing iPad?
No, we tried. I know. We have asked them before if somebody had an iPad and they wanted it, but I think that's part of their package.
But that's just a case on the iPad.
Mm-hmm. Well, so the owner of the company is an engineer, so he designed this bendy handle. It's also, like, it's nice to carry, but it also can serve as going at different angles. So that's their kind of thing.
Can you take the case off?
You can take the case off.
So he's just not smart enough to sell it separately.
Yeah, they're not going to sell it separately. Yeah. Saltillo is the one. I really like the Saltillo devices because they're really thin and lightweight. And they come lots of different sizes. You can see here. Tobii Dynavox. This is the new I-110.
What's it do? Is it drive a car?
Yeah.
It races.
So, yeah, unfortunately, the cost of the devices are really high. And I think it's really hard to look at that and think, wow, yeah, it's basically a tablet with an app on it. But I do think the companies have to go through quite a lot to be able to get these funded through insurance companies. So that's why you see the increase in the prices. So that's why I say I always give families, you can just do your own system, and here's what you could do, or you can try to get it through insurance, and that's how much they'll pay. So, and then the Indie is about $1,000. And again, you should look, the warranty on this one I think is a year, and the warranty on this one I think is 3 years, which is nice. The warranty allows you, if it's broken, they'll fix it, but also tech support. So if it's not working or you want to learn how to do something, you can call them up really anytime and say, I would like to add a video to this button, and they'll help you through it. Okay, so we're towards the end. For Augcom evaluations here in Cincinnati, at the hospital, the Aaron W. Perlman Center, which is where I am, and the Thomas Center also does Augcom evals. So really you can go either place. Basically, the difference being, we usually serve kids who have motor impairments or visual impairments, and we do our evaluations with an OT and a speech therapist together. So we have our main location is down at base. We're in E3, which is in the main hospital, and then we also have a satellite in Mason where we can do the evaluations as well. The Thomas Center, we'll see anybody. Now, this is just our way of delineating who should go where, but usually anybody with Down syndrome can be seen at the Thomas Center. If they have some significant visual or motor impairments, you might want to think about the Perlman Center because of the OT component. They do it with a speech pathologist at the Thomas Center. If they feel like there's a motor component, they will probably send you over just to have that OT take a look. Or if you already have an OT, they may be able to help and consult. So Jen Beacons, who you all may know, is somebody, if you had questions about the Thomas Center and AAC evals, she'd be happy to talk with you. To actually go through an evaluation, the first thing is a physician referral to get the process started. The referral should include evaluation and treatment for speech and OT. Typically, we send out questionnaires, one for the family. If you have a school therapist, we'd like to have them fill one out so we can see what they've tried and what's worked and what hasn't. Or if they're seeing an outpatient speech or OT, we'd love to get feedback from them as well. We are now doing our evaluations scheduled in a 5-session series, and we're doing that because I was telling Jenna earlier that we used to do one eval one day, and we would be there for like 2.5, 3 hours. And typically we would never get what we needed to get done because we still needed to try different things. So we usually had to have them come back at least 1 or 2 more times. So rather than doing it that way, we've just gone to scheduling 5. Every once in a while we can wrap it up in 3 or 4, and then we would cancel the last ones. Sometimes when we're still indecisive and we still have more things we want to try, we may even add on another 5. But we do those together, and then we write up an evaluation, speech and language evaluation, OT evaluation, access evaluation, mostly by the OT figuring out how many buttons can the child handle visually and physically. Do they need a strap for carrying it? Should it be mounted? Should it be lightweight? Which size, just for transportation purposes, can they use? And then speech, which language system should we use? So which app is going to fit best with that child's needs? Once we have decided and recommended something, we'll put together the evaluation report. Ohio Medicaid has a really long CMN that we have to complete. I've heard rumors that they're having a new form come out soon, but we haven't seen it yet. But that would be great because right now it's like 9 pages. Usually we have to have a prescription by the doctor signed, so we'll say we recommend this and the doctor will sign for us. A couple of forms filled out by the company, client information form, and assignment of benefits form. And then we send all of that to the company that we are getting the device from, and they are the ones that submit it to insurance, and then we wait, and fingers crossed that it gets approved. If not, if there's some need for more information, we'll do an appeal letter. If it's an exclusion, we usually say it's not worth appealing because the company's just decided that's not something they're going to cover, and then we try to look for other options for funding.
What age should you do the evaluation for the children?
Well, that depends. So if you are in a situation where you're seeing a therapist, either at school or privately, outpatient-wise, you could work with them and kind of see if they feel like the child's ready. You could go ahead and get an evaluation just to get some ideas for getting started, but you may not get a recommendation for a device, but just, hey, work on these things, come back and see us in 3 months or 6 months. So it's kind of individual. If they've already been trying something, you've tried it at home, and they've shown some success, then I would say go ahead and do it. And I would say the earlier the better, at least to try it. So you just don't know. Some kids, we were talking about that earlier. There's an article in your handouts. I can quickly go through these too. Total communication, and I will tell you that would be what I would preach is total communication. You really want to keep working on those verbal skills. You want to work on sign language. Sign language is awesome because you don't have to take anything with you. And if you can even get 5 functional signs, that would help. Keep working on signs too. And then if they have a device that can supplement, because there's going to be more that they want to say that they might not be able to do with their signs. So, yeah, I would say the sooner the better, or at least get some input from somebody on which direction to go. Some funding sources, obviously we try to go with insurance most of the time. Some people use some of their Aac money. I think we've sent 1 or 2 families to Building Blocks for Kids and a couple to Page's Princess Fund. And then I put up a couple of so loaning devices. If you are working with a therapist, you could ask your therapist if she would be willing or he would be willing to loan a device from one of these places, and you usually get them for 30 days and could try it out. And then I just put our contact information and the Thomas Center as well.